Welcome to the Most High Show, a show about recovery, spirituality, and the 12 steps. Produced, hosted, and posted by people in recovery who've been given strength and hope and want to share it with you. If you or someone you love is suffering, we want you to know you are not alone. This is the Most High Show. Hey, what's up? This is Christian with the Most High Show. Today we're going to be talking about step 12 of the 12 steps. And with me, one of my good friends and the owner of 365 Sober Living, my man Paul. What's up, man?
How you doing, Christian?
Doing good. I try to protect the innocent, so I didn't give your last name, you know.
That's good.
Just in case. First, before we get into it, I've known you for a long time. Ever since I got into the world of recovery, I feel like you've been a part of that personally. And so it's been amazing to have you as a friend and a brother through that whole process. And knowing your story, I know the significance of what you're doing with 365 Sober Living and why you're appropriate to do this 12-step discussion, because I know the commitment you have to men in recovery and just anybody who's in recovery. So can you just tell me a little bit before we dive into the step, how did you get to the point where now you're running this and owning this 365 Sober Living?
Well, the story goes this way is I had worked through the steps and had been doing that for, just kind of the maintenance stuff for, many years, really. And I think it was towards the end of 2014, during my prayer meditation, some things just started coming to me. And the way I do things is I do it on my computer. Okay. Yeah. And so, I opened up like a notepad thing and I just started taking notes on the thoughts that were coming to me. Yeah. And this was over like a period of a year. I'd gotten the notes down and, so after a while in my prayer meditation, I would just say, well, I can't really do this myself. I'm a reasonably good business person. Mm-hmm. I know a lot about recovery. I've been in recovery, for a long time myself. But I'm going to need somebody, to help. Probably not just one, several,
Mm-hmm. So the stuff you were writing down was kind of the idea for this. Yeah. Sober living and.
Yeah, it was, just conceptual ideas mostly. Mm-hmm. And then at the, the beginning of 2016, I met Danny. Yeah. And him and I started talking about it. And what was weird is when he would talk, he was talking my notes.
Wow.
And so he had shown me some pictures from a place that he was at down in Florida. And, I was looking at the pictures and I'm like, okay, now he's showing me visually my notes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
so, over a period of a couple of months, I'm a computer guy by nature. So, I started getting ideas on brand names and what an initial website and things like that would look like. Yeah. I put together like a initial business plan, budget and all that kind of stuff. And, Danny and I just talked over, a 2 or 3 month period. And by April that year, we had it opened up.
Wow. That quick.
Yeah.
When a backstory to how you met Danny is you were helping somebody. I mean, you and I both were helping somebody to get into rehab, and they went to a sober living, and that's kind of how I think you met Danny, right? It was through service that you met Danny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, which is even cooler, right, to me, the story. So he's telling you, you guys are having these discussions, and this is all the stuff you've been writing down in your private time. So feels pretty divinely inspired.
Definitely, no doubt.
Yeah. And so now you guys are up and operating, been up and operating for a few years here, and you're in Alpharetta, Roswell area.
Yep.
Yeah. And what I really like is how, like, when Danny kind of explains it, being in this network that's not just, come stay here, that's it, but there's a network, there's a whole thing in place for the men that come in to have the support they need to recover.
Right. It's kind of like, okay, you come in and here's where you're at. Where do you want to be when you're done with participating in our program,
Right.
And so what Danny does is he essentially builds a plan for them,
Yeah.
and guides them through the whole process to getting where they want to be. And that could be getting back to your family. It could be I want to get in college. I want
Right.
there's all kinds of different scenarios, and that's why we like to call it highly individualized.
So you've been working these steps for quite some time, and so tell me about, like, when someone talks about, all right, it's time for the 12th step. How does that manifest in your life daily, and kind of like, what does somebody tell you when they're like, or what do you say when someone's like, what's the 12th step all about?
Okay, so the 12th step for me, and when I talk about it, I talk about it in terms of the way I was taught.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
By some really good, knowledgeable people, in the program. And so I break it down into 3 parts.
Okay.
The first part is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps.
Right.
Okay. That in itself is a big thing. Okay.
Yeah. So you get to 12, but you got to have the spiritual awakening that comes with getting to 12.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's good to understand that awakening that you get, goes back to, what you came to believe in.
Yeah.
First, and then the decision that you made.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the big book of AA,
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of the book called the Spiritual Experience, Appendix 2.
Yeah.
Okay. And it has an awesome definition. It's like 2 pages of how to distinguish between a spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening.
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill Wilson, the founder, had some issues, with the first, 100, 200, whatever, however many people were involved, explaining, the whole God concept to people.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he wrote this appendix to clarify some things.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And one was to distinguish between a spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
Okay. A spiritual experience is, kind of the white light
Yeah.
type thing that, happens to some people,
Right.
not all people.
Yeah.
Okay. A spiritual awakening in this context is it's what they call the educational variety.
Okay.
Okay. The educational variety comes from working the first 11 steps. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
All right.
Yeah. So it's rooted in something real.
Yeah, you may or may not get that white light, thing.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to get a spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
What was that?
Something.
Oh, okay.
Bluetooth speaker, I think.
Okay. So
It's a spiritual experience.
yeah, it was that. Yeah, God calling. So what's important to understand, at least, and I come from my, from how I learned this, is, by the fact that I worked through, the first 11 steps,
Yeah.
I'm almost guaranteed that spiritual awakening. 'Cause that's what it says, as a result of the steps,
Right.
right? And that's powerful.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful. The second part is in regard to carrying the message.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what happened to you in your spiritual awakening during that process.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
a lot of that impacts how you carry a message.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
in some cases, when I'm working with people that are just coming into the AA program,
Mm-hmm.
the message I'm carrying is the message of hope.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can look at someone like me or other people that you see around you
Right.
that have made it all the way through the program and no longer have the desire to use alcohol or drugs.
Right.
You know that in itself is somewhat of a miracle.
Yeah.
And you can be an
Sure.
example and represent what that experience means.
Yeah.
Now, like you were talking, you and I met at Celebrate Recovery, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I want you to read this.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
There's to me, this is like a second level. And just read 15 and 16 there.
All right.
This is kind of the next level to carrying a message.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is Galatians 1:15 says, "But God in his grace chose me even before I was born and called me to serve him, and when he decided to reveal his son to me so that I might preach the good news about him to the Gentiles, I did not go to anyone for advice." Yeah.
You see, what happened to me is I transitioned from step 11 into step 12.
Yeah.
Is that happened to me?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was not too much longer after that I met you
Right.
in Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
All right. God chose me
Yeah.
to carry his message.
Yeah.
And some of that really was, and what I needed to do when I met you and the other folks at Celebrate Recovery was I needed to learn about Jesus,
Right.
and what impact he had on me, during that whole experience between transitioning from step 11 to step 12.
Right.
Okay.
Because that was the your faith. That was your kind of childhood faith was Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was important for you as your journey into recovery to reconcile that relationship, because that's how you understood God.
Exactly.
Through Jesus, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Now, what changed, okay, was when all this went down, is I understood that he lived inside me.
Right.
That was my awakening.
Right. Wow.
Okay.
It wasn't a far off God looking down at you, pointing his finger at you, judging you,
Right.
telling you you're wrong, or like, was it knows when you're naughty or nice?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was inside you, right? So you began to really get a grasp on the Christian message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it.
Wow.
And it was very, very powerful, and the, years that I spent with, you and the other guys, taught me what I needed to know so I could carry the Christian message effectively,
Yeah.
without necessarily revealing myself, because when you're dealing with broken people,
Right.
you don't necessarily want to, kind of ram that down people's throat,
Right. Because that's right. You're when we're talking to somebody in that state, in a broken state, we're not there to have a theological discussion. We're there to help them get just enough hope to get through the day and not drink or use. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, steps 2 and 3 are real important, because when I worked those steps with my AA sponsor,
Yeah.
would you like to know what my higher power was?
Is that what? Oh yeah. What was it?
My higher power when I said,
First started this
uh, bu-
process.
yeah, when I came to believe and I made my decision,
Mm-hmm.
it was as simple as if I walk through the rest of these steps,
Yeah.
I'm going to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And then by step 11, as you read in Galatians, 1, 15, 16,
Yeah.
I was able to realize that God chose me
Yeah.
before I was born
Right.
to help carry his message to others,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And, that's how it's, I knew none of this
Right.
as things were going along.
Yeah.
This all gets revealed to you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a very, powerful way. And when you sit down and you work with people, and I've worked with many, many, many guys, is you feel that power.
Yeah.
And the power is Christ,
Yeah.
It's awesome, but I don't have to present it that way,
Right.
you know?
No. And when you say God chose you, you're not like going David Koresh on us.
No.
And like starting a cult at 365. It's to say that for whatever reason, here you are having had this spiritual experience, this spiritual awakening, and now with everything you need to carry it on, there's so many that don't make it that far.
Exactly.
There's so many that just they don't get it, and for whatever reason, and they try, and for whatever reason it is. So there is a sense of like, for those of us who kind of are, and just for today, we're recovered today.
Yep.
It's by the grace of God, and that's, I think when you say God chose you, it's that's what you mean. Like God chose you to move this forward, and you accepted that call.
Exactly.
You answered it.
Right. It starts out saying, by God's grace,
Yeah.
so, it's not all people make it, all the way through that full realization,
Yeah.
So, for me, it's not, it was never about the drugs and the alcohol,
Yeah.
It was about my crushed spirit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what, like, when I tell my story, what I learned when I was in rehab was that the drug addiction was a result of me trying to live life like I wasn't a child of God. And as soon as I started, that was like the first thing. Like, as soon as I started believing that, and I started trying to deal with life and manipulate life and not take life on life's terms and try to go around problems, then the drugs and alcohol and everything else that comes with that just was a obvious next step.
Right.
And then once you use drugs long enough, a drug like cocaine, well, eventually cocaine is going to do what it's going to do, and then then that physical addiction thing kicks back in. And
Yep.
but it started, that journey started because for some reason, and I'm still discovering myself, but for some reason there was a point in time when I just was like, I almost like, I got this. I figured it out somehow. Like I figured out God, right? So here I got it figured out. So I'm gonna go and do my thing now. And man, that was just such a mistake because that was the thing that led me right back to drugs and alcohol.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So there's 3 parts. Did you go to the third?
The third part is practice these principles in all my affairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Above each step is a godly principle behind it.
Right.
Okay. So, step 1 is honesty. Step 2 is hope, faith, courage, and so on. The principle behind step 12 is service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huge.
So you now have the awareness of God.
Yeah.
All right. And you have a service mindset, as you're going about your daily life.
Yeah.
All right. And what that allows you to do is get out of the self-centeredness
Right.
that, and I'll just speak for myself, the self-centeredness that, I was only concerned about me and my needs.
Right.
I put myself out there now and I am concerned about
Others.
others.
You know what?
And the fundamental two commandments, what are they that God gives us?
I love God and love people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having that, service mindset as you walk into each day
Yeah.
allows you to fulfill those two commandments because you're getting out of your self-centeredness.
And all the problems I have today are because I get back to that self-deluded state of mind.
Right.
And I slip in there. It's so slick the way it happens. And then I'm suffering. I'm not using. I don't want to use. It's not calling me back to use. But I'm suffering. My life is not fulfilled. I'm not happy. And the reason is because I got back to being self-centered.
Right.
And then everybody else becomes a problem. And it's this whole downward spiral that I can get into. And I think a lot of us, that's kind of the maintenance part, right? It's like, how do you continue to keep that mindset of service? And there's a great saying, like, take yourself out of it. Like when you're dealing with a situation to go, okay, remove yourself, now look at it objectively. And so how do you do that on an ongoing basis? Like just practically?
Practically, it's, it's kind of built into, 10, 11, and 12 is, I keep an eye on my reaction to the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, all the, character flaws and things that came up, through my, step 4 through 9,
Right.
Work,
Yeah.
revealed to me what my fundamental problems were,
Right.
and I always go back to those,
Yeah. Right.
10 helps me recognize, where I'm at fault,
Right.
ongoing, and then, step 11 helps me, do the love God part of those two commandments,
Yeah.
which is to maintain a conscious contact, a
Yeah.
connection
Right.
on a daily basis, with my higher power, who is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. And then putting yourself out there, okay, love people is help others.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not, just sponsoring people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing to do, and I do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've sponsored many guys, and but there's other types of service that you can do.
Yeah.
And put yourself out there. Like on Thanksgiving.
Right.
Go. Where they had Thanksgiving dinners for people.
Right.
That's just an example, but there's all kinds of opportunities.
Oh yeah.
To serve God's kingdom,
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I usually tell when somebody's dealing, even if it's not a drug or alcohol thing, but they're having that, life. Sometimes people will have a rudderless life because they feel they have no purpose. There's, and so what I'll do is I'll encourage them to go serve. I mean, go down to the Atlanta Mission.
Yeah.
You just show up there at like 4:00 and tell them, hey, I want to serve the guys. They'll put you to work, and it immediately takes you out of yourself. That just the concept of service itself.
Well, you were talking about, you thinking about your problems,
Right.
and things, right, and getting too focused on that during the course of a day.
Yeah.
When you put yourself out there like that, the last thing you're thinking about is your problems.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it works. That's the thing is that it works.
Yeah.
I'm very, it also puts you in an attitude of gratitude,
For sure.
You're always thankful because, when I'm out there helping somebody, my circumstances seem pretty minimal, compared to that,
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a very humbling, specifically the Atlanta Mission, which I love. I support that organization. And yeah, you come home from serving meals there, and we used to go there and speak a lot. And you come home and you're like, holy shit, I got 3 toilets. Like,
Yeah.
they're all my toilets, like I could pick one to use. And then here are these, God's children who are, struggling for what a myriad of problems and reasons of why they're there. But it's just, it puts you it gets you in the right perspective.
Yeah,
Gratitude.
I spent a year serving in as a worship member.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you would have asked me whether I was the type of person that would be sitting there in one of those choir outfits, I would have told you were crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I did that for a year.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. It's I'll get into a commitment and I'll do it for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
At Celebrate Recovery, we led those meetings.
Yeah.
Right. For I forget how well over a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are the kind. Addicts and alcoholics, they'll discourage you. Because they'll keep relapsing or
Yeah.
whatever. But the thing is, if I continue to put myself out there,
Yeah.
the one shining star comes up and succeeds.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's what makes it all worth it. So I got to keep trying.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking about Mitchell, who's usually on the show, and a part of Mitchell's story that doesn't really get a lot of spotlight is he spends a lot of time with people with disabilities. He has a better word for it, and they have various disabilities, mental or physical or whatever. And so when you kind of see him at work with those, oh hey, there's another spiritual experience right there. Hold on. Hey, open the door. We're recording. Get her out there. All right, we're recording. There's another edit at 28 minutes. I won't edit that out. That's just good stuff. So yeah, so here he is, with these people, and it to me when I see him doing that, I just think, man, that's just like what a blessing to be with that kind of, to be there for a person like that. He's so patient, and all the things that you would want from someone who's a caregiver. That's how he is with those people, and that's great. And I think I find like a lot of value in what we're doing here, like in the service that we're doing here. I feel like this is a service, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We are a nonprofit. People do support us, but it's not like we're not setting out to do this so that we can take over the world or get rich or anything. So, this is a service, and like you said, I can get done with this podcast. I'll edit it all together. We'll post it, and I will have done something. It's not like you said, dependent on somebody else's success or failure.
Right. It's just the reality is I have to do it to maintain my step 2 sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I was given God's grace.
Yeah.
If it was under my choice, I would have never made it in recovery.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I look at it and the gift I've been given,
yeah,
right, it would be very shallow of me to not give that back. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me personally, a big thing for me as far as this step 12 goes is the way I treat my wife and my kids. Like I feel like that's with my higher power, Jesus is usually using those relationships to get me in a place of service, because it's one thing for me to leave and go serve somewhere, or go to the mission, or go do this, or go do that. But when it's down to the moment where it's like, okay, I need to choose them over what I want to do right now, that's when my most selfish thing kicks in. It's like, no, I don't. I want to have my time here, and so that's how it's really manifests itself in my life.
And that's the practicing the principles in all your affairs. What are you like? When you're outside of the recovery circle,
right?
Right.
And
out there in the real world,
Yeah.
The real world still needs us.
Yeah.
you know?
Right. We have jobs, we have clients, and in those situations too, it's important that, you know, we practicing these principles there, which really are Jesus principles, you know, frankly,
Yep.
you know, to just care for other people, love other people, be understanding, be caring. Sometimes you just be nice. You know, you don't fire back the email that's like a venomous email when you want to so badly, but you don't do it because you know that that's not going to help anybody.
You know, one of the centered principles is humility.
Yeah.
You know, each step, humility is kind of the bridge between them.
Yeah.
And it's my alcoholic disease was progressive.
Yeah.
Okay, as you work through all the steps and you get to 12, the humility is progressive.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
and that's powerful. Because I'm progressively establishing a better and more powerful connection with my higher power. As I'm going along. And then you can't what they say in the big book is you can't sit on your laurels. Your laurel. Once I start relying on myself again, guess what happens?
right.
Yeah. You had kind of talked about that before,
Yeah. Yeah, you might not go full on to a relapse, but you're not going to be living the promises for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The treatment ongoing for alcohol, for people in recovery, is to be in service of others. That's that's at least part of the treatment. The other part of the treatment is to demonstrate humility to your higher power.
Yeah.
Which can be prayer, which can be meditation, which can be going to church, which can be but you've got to you got to understand that you're not running the show anymore.
Right.
Yeah. I had to give that job up.
But that's what I like in the Celebrate Recovery steps. It says, realize that I'm not God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Realize.
Let's get this out of the way first. I'm not God. That's I love that way that's worded.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like I Dream of Jeannie. We used to think that we could blink our eyes and make people do things,
Right.
and it never happened. We got frustrated and we drank,
Right. Right. Yeah. That's amazing. Cool, man. One thing that's coming to mind is, since we've talked about Jesus, is Paul in the Bible writes that Jesus who saw him, who was, if you're a Christian, Jesus who was equal with God, didn't see that as something to be taken advantage of, but yet came to earth in the form of a servant and submitted himself to death, even a death on a cross, which would be the worst kind of death at the time. And so that here's the Christian example of living, is to have this extreme amount of power and responsibility, but to decide to be humble, decide to wash your, disciples' feet, decide to go even to the point of dying for people who might not even know what it was for or appreciate it, That's the example as Christians that we have. As humility, we don't think of God as a humble thing, but for Christians, it is. It's essential to our living is this concept of humility, and what better way if you're not humble than start serving, right? That's a good way to start it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to live by, godly principles, it's all laid out in the steps. That's what's cool about it, you don't even have to have that, that awareness that, that you just talked about.
Right.
Okay. And be a major contributor to our society and to people in recovery,
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Right. Yeah. All right, man. Well, check out 365soberliving.com
Yep.
to get more information on their program and how they can help. And as always, you can like this and star it and review it and comment on this podcast. And if you go to themosthighshow.com, we can accept donations. and everything helps to get us to continue to do stuff like this.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Chris.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you, brother.
Okay.
All right.